He was considered one of the greatest polymaths of the age, being skilled during the High Renaissance at inventing anatomy, cartography, chemistry, painting, and paleontology. Very few can arguably have given the contribution to later generations that Leonardo di Ser Piero da Vinci has. But aside from all of his fans and works lies his secret. Leonardo was born on the 14th/15th of April, 1452, in the Tuscan hill town of Vinci, in the lower valley of the Arno River, in the territory of the Medici-ruled Republic of Florence. He was born to Messer Piero Fruosino di Antonio da Vinci, a wealthy Florentine legal notary, and his mother, Caterina di Mio Lippi. Leonardo spent his first years in the hamlet of Anciano in the home of his mother, and, from at least 1457, lived in the household of his father, grandparents, and uncle in the small town of Vinci. In the beginning, Leonardo would receive education in Latin, geometry, and mathematics. Unfortunately, as is the case with many popular charismatic individuals, inconsistencies develop, with fantastic tales that border on the delusional. In later life, Leonardo recorded a few distinct childhood incidents. One was of a kite coming to his cradle and opening his mouth with its tail. He regarded this as an omen of his writing on the subject. In the mid-1460s, Leonardo moved with his family to Florence, where he became a garzon, also known as a studio boy, in the workshop of Verrocchio, who was the leading Florentine painter and sculptor of his day. This would become a defining part of Leonardo's life, because, as it turns out, he would become the bright-eyed apprentice of this Andrea del Verrocchio. Leonardo would become an apprentice at 17 and be taught by Verrocchio for 7 years. So, a rich father and the top-of-the-line teacher, not a bad start for an artist. Leonardo would qualify as a master in the Guild of St. Luke, the guild of artists and doctors of medicine. Leonardo's father would even set him up with his own workshop. However, it should be noted that despite all of this, Leonardo still relied on Verrocchio and lived and collaborated with him. In fact, one of his most famous paintings, The Baptism of Christ, was made in collaboration with Verrocchio. In January 1478, Leonardo began to receive commissions to paint in buildings. One was to paint an altarpiece for the chapel of St. Bernard in the Palazzo Vecchio. The other was from the monks of San Donato in Scopito for the Adoration of the Magi. But neither of these individual commissions were completed, being abandoned when Leonardo went to offer his services to Duke of Milan Ludovico Sforza. Leonardo would work for the Duke on many different projects, everything from painting and drawing wooden models to floats and pageants. It will be said that Leonardo withdrew some of his works he made again. This is also the time when Leonardo would make some of his most famous works, such as The Last Supper and The Virgin on the Rocks. He was also known to have had at least one assistant, Salai. But with war dawning, Leonardo's life would be changed once again. With Ludovico Sforza overthrown at the dawn of the Second Italian War, Leonardo, with his assistant Salai and friend, the mathematician Luca Pacioli, fled Milan for Venice. Leonardo would not flee with his family because he did not care to have contact with them. Immediately, Leonardo would set up as a military engineer and architect, with his main duty to protect the city from naval attacks. Yes, as it turns out, the Renaissance was actually not a peaceful time at all. Eventually, in 1500, Leonardo would return to Florence, but would only do art in addition to working for the military under Cesare Borgia, which meant that he would travel Italy for years, having less time to devote to painting. He would return again, now able to devote his time to his own interests. Leonardo would have several famous pupils and be a member of the prominent society. Despite common stories, he actually worked in tandem with Michelangelo on many occasions, such as where would be the best place for Michelangelo's David statue, and designing the Battle of Anghiari, a companion piece of Michelangelo's The Battle of Cascina. In 1513, Leonardo would move to Rome in the Belvedere courtyard in the Apostolic Palace, where Michelangelo and Raphael were both active. The Pope gave Leonardo a painting commission, but would have to cancel it, because Leonardo would begin to focus his efforts on developing a new type of varnish. In the end, Leonardo would become a very wealthy man, even though he consistently left his works unfinished. He wouldn't even finish the Mona Lisa. He drew up only plans for castle towns for King Francis I. He was a Christian, lamentating on his deathbed, full of repentance, that he had offended against God and men by failing to practice his art as he should have done. In his last days, Leonardo sent for a priest to make his confession and to receive the Holy Sacrament. Vasari also records that the king held Leonardo's head in his arms when he died, although the story may be legend rather than fact. He died at Clos-Luthe on the 2nd of May, 1519, at the age of 67, due to illness and strokes.
Leonardo's early life has been the subject of historical conjecture. Leonardo's sexuality is nothing more than speculation. And when basic facts erode to conjecture and speculation, truth will be hidden apocryphally. When it comes to art, often the fame of the artist is more important than the work itself. Leonardo was a master at hiding his own talents by not finishing work and by using others for help. I'll see you next time.